Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling. Yes, we have an update on the plans for the current AEW World Champion in Impact Wrestling. Now, it's been quite a busy weekend for Kenny Omega. He actually broke the laws of physics because he was on Impact Wrestling's Final Resolution event on Impact Plus and competing at Triple Mania at the same time for AAA. The magic of post-production and taped television. Nevertheless, it was a busy weekend for Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling because he did appear on Impact TV at Final Resolution. Now, during the show, we had Impact interviewer Gia Miller. She knocked on Kenny Omega and Don Callis' tour bus during the show. She knocked a few times before Impact Executive Vice President Don Callis came out. She asked Don if Kenny is on the bus and if he's going to be involved at Final Resolution on the evening. Now, Don Callis informed her that no, he would not be on the show that evening. He was there to see family. Don Callis then excused himself, so it got a lot of people thinking, who was this family he was there to see? But it was none other than Impact World Tag Team Champion, one half of the Impact World Tag Team Champions, one half of the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson. Now, Carl Anderson and Kenny Omega were both members of the Bullet Club together in New Japan Pro Wrestling, cut their teeth there several years ago. Now, during the segment where Omega and Anderson caught up, Omega and Don Callis reminisced about their glory days in New Japan. Of course, Don Callis was also color commentator for New Japan during that period of time. They reminisced about their time in New Japan and their time together in the Bullet Club. Now, Carl Anderson informed them that he had the match later on that evening against Ethan Page, and he got a little bit of a pep talk, but a little bit of disrespect also from the AEW World Champion and the Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President. They said that you shouldn't have a problem with a guy like Ethan Page. If this is the Carl Anderson from New Japan and not the Carl Anderson from WWE, you shouldn't have a problem at all. So they started to question if the machine gun was really still present in the inside of Carl Anderson, as it were, and kind of said, we hope to see the machine gun come out for tonight's match. Of course, Carl Anderson did defeat Ethan Page in that match, so maybe the machine gun did come out, but it did get a lot of people talking about what does this mean for Kenny Omega and Impact Wrestling. Now, I will talk about the whole, it's a one-off, it's not that intertwined, because the more appearances that Kenny Omega makes for Impact Wrestling, it's becoming more and more obvious this is not a one-off. This is not that, it's not going to be that intertwined, it's just tit for tat. Kenny Omega's going to appear on an Impact this week, and the Good Brothers are then going to have an appearance for AEW, and that's going to be it. It is far more than that. It is what I originally speculated, that it is far more than that. So this reunion of Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson at Final Resolution, what does it mean? Well, it could mean potentially a Bullet Club reunion across both Impact Wrestling and AEW. Now, we know a lot of the wrestlers in AEW, Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, etc. They all obviously have a history with the Bullet Club and New Japan, but also so do the Good Brothers in Impact Wrestling. What about if the Bullet Club, they could tell a fantastic story here if it was a kind of divide and conquer scenario, whereby the Bullet Club now have their tentacles, as it were, in all these different promotions. They've got Kenny Omega in AEW and Impact Wrestling. They've got the Good Brothers in Impact Wrestling. You've got Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks in AEW. What if Tony Khan, the AEW president, owner, and founder, has been duped by the Bullet Club, and now the Bullet Club own and control all of Impact Wrestling and AEW? That could be very, very interesting. Or we could just see a stable of Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers going forward in Impact Wrestling. We talked about this before when we spoke about Kenny Omega and the plans for Omega and Impact Wrestling, that it would make a lot of sense if Don Callis has truly screwed over the AEW president Tony Khan, if he's truly taken away the World Championship from AEW and its most prized asset in Kenny Omega, it would make a lot of sense for Kenny Omega not to wrestle in AEW going forward. Yes, I'll do the appearances because maybe as he's contractually obliged to do so, but he's only going to wrestle in Impact Wrestling going forward. That would truly cement this real invasion-style storyline that they screwed over Tony Khan, and they're holding All Elite Wrestling to ransom, and they're holding Tony Khan to ransom for their champion and their championship going forward. That would be really interesting. Maybe Kenny Omega truly does become an Impact Wrestling guy. Now, of course, Kenny Omega is still under contract to AEW, but nevertheless, it would certainly be an interesting direction to take this story in. What I did want to mention as well about this backstage promo that we saw, or this tour bus promo, as it were, that we saw at Final Resolution, a little detail that goes such a long way with me. Don Callis and Kenny Omega changed clothes. Now, why does that have any significance, you might say? Well, obviously, they filmed these Don Callis and Kenny Omega promos at the same time. It's the same tour bus, and they obviously shot these pre-tapes back to back to back. So at the same time that they shot the promo that they did with Josh Matthews on Tuesday, they shot this, and they probably shot some future content as well. They shot that all at the same time or on the same day. Now, it would be a very easy thing to do just to stay in the clothes that you were wearing from week to week to week to week, but it would be very obvious that you taped it all at the same time. So for a little bit of continuity, not that people really notice these things, but I did, and it just goes to make things feel a little bit more real and a little bit more special, is that Kenny Omega and Don Callis, they changed the clothes that they were wearing from Tuesday. Obviously, we know that Final Resolution and Impact Wrestling is pre-taped. We know that Final Resolution at this point has been in the can for like 2 weeks. It was filmed as part of the TV tapings a couple of weeks ago. And the Kenny Omega Don Callis stuff was filmed a little bit after that, after the AEW Dynamite Winter is Coming special edition, when, of course, Kenny Omega won the AEW World Championship from Jon Moxley. We knew that was all filmed then, and they could have filmed it all at the same time with the same clothes, but they changed the clothing. They changed the clothing, and they tried to give the impression that legitimately Kenny Omega was just outside of the Impact Zone, like they did on Tuesday. The tour bus is outside. Don Callis is refusing to let Kenny Omega go inside the Impact Zone, but the parking lot's blocked off for the real world champion Kenny Omega. They're trying to give the impression that Kenny Omega is legitimately there. He's interacting with Impact Wrestling talent. He's changing his clothes. They've got the shots of outside the Impact Zone with the tour bus. They're giving off the impression he's really there, and that goes a long way with me. I like the attention to the details there, and it was just a small thing, but I thought it was fantastic. But the reconnection between Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson I thought was great. It was a nice little add-on to Final Resolution. I said in the preview and predictions, I felt that we needed to see something AEW-centric happen on the show. Obviously, we know that Kenny Omega has been announced for Tuesday's episode on Access TV, which was really important, I think. But we needed something to happen regarding AEW or Kenny Omega on the show to continue the momentum. At this point, Impact Wrestling has a ton of momentum. They did the best ratings they've ever done on Access TV on Tuesday, across the board on social media, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, whatever metric you want to measure, they did very, very well. Now, that's because of Kenny Omega, that's because of AEW and this working relationship. But the momentum needs to carry on. You can't just be content with the big number that you did last week. You want to do bigger and better. Now, time will remain to be seen if that actually does happen, but they're doing their very best to continue the momentum, and I credit them for that. I mentioned previously when I spoke about the ratings here on the channel, are they going to improve on Tuesday? Are they going to stay the same? Are they going to drop? Are they even going to go higher? I did feel that without any more AEW involvement, they would drop. At this point, you don't know. You don't know, because is the hype as much as it was last week coming out of the Winter is Coming edition of Dynamite? Probably not. We're kind of getting used to this AEW essence on Impact Wrestling going forward. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean the ratings might not stay up there, because the interesting number, as I mentioned previously, wasn't last week, it was this week and the week after. So we're truly going to see the effect of AEW on Impact Wrestling going forward, and the value of Kenny Omega appearing on Access TV going forward. So it was crucial that they did something AEW-centric, continue the momentum, and continue people to get hyped for the next Kenny Omega appearance on Tuesday, and hopefully keep the ratings up high on Access TV, on Twitch, and across the board on their social media. So very interesting and very important that you had that Kenny Omega appearance at Final Resolution. Now, a name that, of course, is missing is Doc Gallows, the other half of the Good Brothers and the Impact World Tag Team Champions. So where is Doc Gallows? Now, of course, in storyline, it was teased, or announced rather, on the November 24 episode of Impact Wrestling that Doc Gallows would be out of action for 4 to 6 weeks after being taken out by the North's Ethan Page. Well, PW Insider does have an update on Doc Gallows after he missed the last set of Impact Wrestling tapings last month. According to PW Insider, Doc Gallows missed the latest set of Impact TV tapings due to an acting role. Now, of course, there's no word yet on the details of the acting gig, what it's for, what the movie will be, and when he'll be back. Nevertheless, Carl Anderson did defeat Ethan Page at Final Resolution, so it doesn't look like we're going to get that feud, or final match rather, against the North on Impact Wrestling TV. We're going to do a video on Ethan Page later today, so be sure to check that out. But it looks like I would assume that Doc Gallows will be back probably at the next set of TV tapings, which is in January, so he might appear at the Genesis TV special, or most certainly he'll appear at Hard to Kill. And once again, it's the next step in this Kenny Omega storyline, I guess, is we've had the reunion with Kenny Omega and Carl Anderson. Next is the reunion between Kenny Omega and Doc Gallows, and then eventually we're going to have this Good Brothers versus the Young Bucks match probably in an AEW ring going forward. So he'll be back at the next set of TV tapings, but it goes to show what people knew about the Good Brothers contract with Impact Wrestling. They signed a very good deal, not just in terms of money, but also the ability to do things outside of Impact Wrestling. They have the ability to do their podcasts, to do their Talking Shop Mania stuff on Fight TV. Obviously, they have the clauses in there that if and when they want to work with New Japan, when those opportunities arise, they can. And also, Doc Gallows can miss TV tapings to do these acting roles. So it's just part of the contract, but good to know that it's not a legitimate injury or anything like that, and Doc Gallows will be back soon because, of course, he's going to be a key feature in this Impact Wrestling and AEW crossover storyline that they're doing. Now, I mentioned that we did have some backstage news on Kenny Omega's upcoming appearance on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday, so it's going to be very, very exciting because following his appearances on Impact Wrestling last week and at Final Resolution, Kenny Omega once again, as previously confirmed by Impact Wrestling, will grace his presence on tomorrow's episode of Impact on Access TV. Now, we don't know yet, officially, why the AEW World Champion and Don Callis will be on Tuesday's show, apart from probably cutting another promo, but Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter and on Wrestling Observer Radio has noted that the segment will be used to set up Kenny Omega's first match in Impact Wrestling. Meltzer said, quote, "So, with Omega, did they set up the match? Because they're going to announce on Tuesday a Kenny Omega match." Now, Omega's upcoming match comes only days after previous reports by Meltzer and others signaled that the AEW World Champion will headline some Impact Wrestling pay-per-views. Notice the S on there, not pay-per-view, but pay-per-views. We're going to have multiple Kenny Omega matches on multiple Impact Wrestling pay-per-views / special events. So the AEW World Champion is currently on a quest with Don Callis, the Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President, to collect as many titles as possible, and now it looks like he has his eyes on the Impact World Championship. So, could Kenny Omega be setting up a match against Rich Swann? Could that be set up on Tuesday? I think, and I mentioned this last week, it feels inevitable at this point. We're getting Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann. When, where, we'll probably find out on Tuesday. But it feels like that's the match we're going to get. Why? Because they've been telling us that. They have been telling us that. They have been planting the seeds very much so and heavily teasing this one going forward. Rich Swann, that whole segment right before the main event, the Rich Swann tease, that was the biggest indicator. That was the smoking gun, as it were, when it comes to this Kenny Omega and Rich Swann match. Rich Swann, he's walking in the hallway. He goes to leave Skyway Studios there in Nashville, Tennessee. Their security there blocks him off, says, whoa, 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 sorry. The parking lot is blocked off for the real world champion. And Rich Swann shakes his head, goes, can you stop telling Moose, can you tell Moose, rather, that he's not the real world champion, he carries around a fake title. He says, not Moose. The AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. Josh Matthews then walks past, says, Josh Matthews, he's on the list, he's allowed to go into the parking lot and go on the tour bus with Omega and Don Callis. Rich Swann looked bemused, frustrated, and walked off. That was a heavy tease. The real world champion. Come on. Come on. We're going to get this Kenny Omega and Rich Swann match, world champion versus world champion, possibly for both world championships. Now, the interesting thing about this is the way that Final Resolution went off the air, considering that Moose confronted Rich Swann and handed him his world championship, said to me and many people that we're going in the direction that we thought we were going to see coming out of Bound for Glory, and that's Rich Swann versus Moose for the Impact World Championship at Hard to Kill. They've been telling that story for months at this point, so it feels strange for them to go in a different direction with Kenny Omega and Rich Swann, especially since they teased Rich Swann versus Moose at the end of Final Resolution on Saturday. There's lots of mixed messages here. Now, in terms of Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann, we're going to do a really in-depth video on what that match could look like, what that feud could look like, different outcomes. We're going to do that tomorrow, so be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to be talking a lot about that. But I mentioned this possibility at the top of the video here, that we could have this situation where the Bullet Club are taking over Impact Wrestling and AEW. We know we're getting the Good Brothers versus the Young Bucks. Now, obviously, that's not confirmed, but it looks like we're going in that direction. Perhaps this happens. Perhaps the way the Good Brothers and Young Bucks happen inside of an AEW ring happens with the Good Brothers finally aligning once again with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. Therefore, when Kenny Omega and Don Callis make these AEW appearances, they bring with them the Good Brothers, the Impact World Tag Team Champions, as backup. Therefore, this then leads to a reunion of sorts between the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks. There you have the conflict, and there you have the future match inside of an AEW ring. And it could be the sense that they're the ones invading and screwing over AEW, the Bullet Club. They're taking over the business because it looks like, especially with Kyle Anderson's victory over Ethan Page at Final Resolution, and with the North looking like they're going to break up very soon with Ethan Page departing the company, the Good Brothers are now done with the North. So what's next? Well, what's next looks to be the Young Bucks. Now, we haven't had a Young Bucks appearance on Impact Wrestling as of yet. I'm not sure if Impact will see an appearance by the Young Bucks going forward. It might just be Kenny Omega from AEW for now appearing on Impact Wrestling, but we definitely could see the Good Brothers acting as a backup of sorts for Kenny Omega and Don Callis when they make their trips to AEW, which would then lead to the confrontation with the Young Bucks. So going back to Kenny Omega, obviously Dave Meltzer is suggesting that Tuesday will set up the match for Kenny Omega in Impact Wrestling, or the multiple matches, or the first of many, as it were. It has to be Rich Swann. I mean, it has to be. But again, the confusing element of this is that Rich Swann is now looking at Moose. So I suppose what we could see, we know that Genesis is happening, and that's happening in January, 7 days before Hard to Kill. We could possibly see Rich Swann versus Kenny Omega at Genesis. I don't think we will. That's before Hard to Kill, and I don't think with the caliber of wrestler like Kenny Omega, the star power, I mean, look at the ratings they did across the board. Look at how they trended on social media. With one Kenny Omega appearance, would you waste the first ever Kenny Omega match inside of an Impact Wrestling ring at Genesis on Impact Plus? I don't think you would. I think you would save that for pay-per-view. So I think they might flip it the other way around. I can see Rich Swann facing Moose at Genesis, 7 days before Hard to Kill, and then the winner of that match not only will be the Impact World Champion, but the winner of that match will then face Kenny Omega at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view in the main event for the Impact and AEW World Championship. That's what I think is going to happen. So I don't think we will see a Kenny Omega match at Genesis. We could, though, I guess, considering they're 7 days apart. It depends on the TV taping schedule. As far as I'm aware, I don't think they've taped Genesis just yet. I might be wrong. It might have been part of the recent TV tapings. I haven't seen many reports about that or many people talking about that. We'll just have to wait and see. But as I mentioned, if I had to make a prediction right now, I think we're probably going to see Rich Swann versus Moose at Genesis for the World Championship. The winner of that match will then face Kenny Omega for the Impact and AEW World Championship at Hard to Kill, with Kenny Omega then finally collecting the Impact World Championship and holding both the AEW and Impact World titles at the end of Hard to Kill as that goes off the air in January. As I mentioned before, it's all about momentum. It's all about buzz and it's all about momentum. This storyline, this Impact and AEW crossover has a lot of buzz and a lot of momentum going right now. And as I said before, why can't Kenny Omega be on a ton of Impact Wrestling episodes going forward? We know the taping schedule previously, and probably going forward, at least for the foreseeable future when it comes to Impact, how they tape their TV. They tape them in big batches. So if you're Kenny Omega, and it looks to be exactly what they've done when it comes to these tour bus vignettes, he had Don Callis and Kenny Omega on the tour bus for maybe a day or so. Why can't you tape 5, 6, 7 different promos and vignettes in the space of 2-3 hours? Cut them up, post-produce them, and put them into different episodes of Impact, Final Resolution, Genesis, etc. It makes the most sense. If you've got Kenny Omega for that time, why not make the most of it? Just because he's there for a day doesn't mean you can't put him in multiple episodes of Impact. It looks like that's what they're going to be doing going forward, and that is going to lead to this first match for Kenny Omega inside of an Impact Wrestling ring, which to me has to be against Rich Swann for the Impact World Championship, and I would do it. I would put the Impact World Championship on Kenny Omega. It's the right thing to do for Impact Wrestling right now. Look at the ratings, look at the buzz, look at the momentum, look at any metric you want to look at in the last 7 days or so, or a little bit longer. They've all been jumping off they've been off the chart. It's been ginormous, the amount of success that Impact has had with this. And AEW, they're benefiting as well. They're getting the talent of the Good Brothers. They're getting the buzz. They're getting momentum as well. They did great numbers this past week on Dynamite. It's not lopsided. Both companies are mutually benefiting out of this, so why not continue it? Why not put the Impact World Championship on Kenny Omega? Then every time you see Kenny Omega on AEW Dynamite by nearly 1 million people live and much more than 1 million on DVR and on demand, you see the Impact World Championship. That reminds you, go watch Impact Wrestling on Tuesday nights on Access TV or on Twitch. It's a win-win. It seems just the right thing to do from a booking point of view from Impact Wrestling right now. And once again, it laughs in the face of these previous reports, right? Remember those reports? I hate to call them out, but Nick Houseman at Wrestling Inc. It's just a one-off. It's not going to be that intertwined. It's just Kenny Omega doing a favor for Don Callis, and then the Good Brothers are going to be going in the opposite direction. They'll have a match against the Young Bucks in AEW, and then wash your hands of the whole thing. Don't get your hopes up, fans. This is going to be a one-off. Definitely isn't. It definitely isn't at this point. Kenny Omega, multiple appearances, multiple matches, multiple pay-per-views. The Good Brothers, they're going to AEW, and to me, it's only the beginning. It's only beginning. This working relationship looks to be expanding. And look, Kenny Omega, he was a huge rating success for Impact. They have to keep it going. They have to keep it going. What's going to happen on Tuesday's appearance? According to Dave Meltzer, he's going to set up a future match. What is that going to consist of? The actual segment on Tuesday? Probably another promo. Probably another promo on the bus, and it's probably already been taped going forward. It's going to be interesting to see if Impact Wrestling will send out screeners like they did last week. I'm not sure they will this time. If they do, they'll probably cut the Kenny Omega portions out of it, especially if he announces a future match inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. But it's probably going to be another promo that's already been taped on the Kenny Omega and Don Callis tour bus. They probably filmed a load of them over the last few weeks. As I mentioned, it's a super hot angle, and it makes a lot of logical sense for them to film multiple promos and then splice them out going forward on multiple episodes of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Again, I'm sure some people will complain, oh, it's just another pre-tape, just another 10-minute Kenny Omega pre-tape on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. What do you expect? What do you expect? If you think Kenny Omega is going to appear inside the Impact Zone until January, it's just not going to happen. Why? Because look at it. Logistically, it's not possible. It's already been taped. So that's not going to happen. But it's all about building up momentum. I mentioned momentum is there. And if the ratings continue to build, just think how big the number could be when it's confirmed Kenny Omega is actually going to be in the building or actually having a match. It'd get even bigger. So it's all about momentum, and I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited to see it. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the plans for Kenny Omega's first few matches inside of an Impact Wrestling ring and his reunion with Carl Anderson at Final Resolution? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, NXT, all that fun stuff. Get involved with the community in the comment section below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.